welcome into a For What It's Worth episode 25. I am your host, Calvin Silvers, and we are going to be talking about the key takeaways from this year's Super Bowl 59, where we saw the Philadelphia Eagles put some belt to ass, as they say, to the Kansas City Chiefs, winning 40 to 22 in a surprise game, one that I would say most of America probably did not see coming. Now, you may have predicted the Chiefs to lose. That's fine. All good things have to come to an end at some point. But I know damn well you did not pick them to lose by this much. And I know damn well you did not expect Patrick Mahomes to look that bad. But that was how the dice rolled there in New Orleans for the Chiefs and the Eagles. So let's start off this episode with just the key takeaways and what we really learned from the Super Bowl with these two teams and even players. And we just got to start off with the Super Bowl 59 MVP, Jalen Hurts. He put on a masterclass performance, showcasing his dual threat abilities. His arm was great, his legs were great. He was really just dissecting that Chiefs defense that was getting praised throughout not only the entire playoffs, but the past two seasons. People have been saying, oh, it's the Chiefs' defense that they've relied on more than Mahomes per se, at least in majority of games. Mahomes would step up in crucial moments, but it was the defense that was keeping them in games, or at least keeping them within those one possession games that they're just so great at winning. And then, like I said, Mahomes would later do the rest. So I have to owe an apology to Jalen Hurts. As a man, I was wrong. Because, like many fans in the NFL, I assume that Jalen Hurts can't win a game with his arm. That when it came down to it, when it had to be him as the main force, the main moving piece of the offense, not Barkley, not A.J. Brown, not Devontae Smith, when it had to be him, I didn't think they could win a game this handily against a team like the Chiefs. So he proved me wrong there, and I think he proved not only the NFL wrong, but a majority of people wrong, besides probably Philly fans. He's not expected to throw 40 passes a game. He's not expected to get 400 plus passing yards a game. That's just not who Jalen Hurts is. But what he's asked to do, he does really well. And he showcased that. Beautiful passes down the sideline, hitting different receivers. It wasn't just Devontae Smith, it was A.J. Brown. You got a mix of everyone. Now, I'm going to go over some stats here that I think you will find surprising because Jalen Hurts is a solidified quarterback in the league. Yeah, I had my doubts. You can go back and listen to any of the podcast episodes throughout the year. You probably heard me at some point questioning his ability. Proved me wrong on the biggest stage. Another game he outperformed Patrick Mahomes, just like he did in the other Super Bowl. So not only is he doing this really well against really good competition, he's doing it on the biggest stage. Let's get into those stats here. After completing 71.3% of his passes in the Super Bowl when they faced the Chiefs the first time, and then 77.3% in Sunday's Super Bowl, Hurts is now the most accurate passer in Super Bowl history with a 73.3 career completion percentage. I get that he's only been in two, still really impressive. Hurts now has a career Super Bowl rating of 109.4, which is the fourth highest in NFL history, behind three Hall of Famers, Joe Montana, Terry Bradshaw, and Troy Aikman. Only the fourth to have a 100 passing rating in his first two Super Bowls. Hurts also has six career postseason games with a passer rating of at least 100. I'm not done. Hurts completed 75% of his passes against the Rams, 71.4% against the Commanders, and 77.3% Sunday versus the Chiefs. So all postseason, he was doing it. And he's only thrown 26 incomplete passes in the postseason, or 6.5 per game. That's right. He only threw 26 incomplete passes in the postseason, or 6.5 per game. So in that game, Super Bowl, Eagles just came out with confidence. I mean, they had the ball moving. It looked effortless, just down the field. Hurts, calm in the biggest moment, probably of his career. I would say it was his career. It's bigger than the first one he played in because this was a chance to take down a solidified Patrick Mahomes going for a three-peat in a Chiefs dynasty. This was a lot bigger. They looked really calm, and like I said, they used a nice mix of not only run plays with Barkley, but also pass plays. And not only strictly Barkley could run the ball, Hurts could take off of his legs too. They just couldn't contain Hurts' ability to break free runs on all-out blitzes, which was very sparse with the Chiefs and Spags in this game, which is kind of to me since they were having so much success with blitz packages and just blitzing and getting to the quarterback throughout the postseason this year. So that surprised me that that seemed to go away. But even on the all-out blitzes, Jalen Hurts was just able to take off up the middle. And so there's really just no way to stop him. Like I said, he was making correct reads and passes down the sideline in the breadbasket, giving it to where only his receivers could get it. I get he had that one bad turnover. Other than that, a flawless game. So that brings up the question or what is Jalen Hurts' status as an NFC quarterback? And whether you had questions or not before, whether you knew this or not before, it is now solidified that he is the premier quarterback in the NFC. He's led the Eagles to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. That's elite. I don't care what kind of competition you're going against, that's elite. 2 in 3 years. In fact, this kind of success doesn't really come around all that often in the NFC with a quarterback because the last time this type of success happened was with Russell Wilson in the NFC, who guided this Seattle Seahawks to back-to-back Super Bowls. And so this doesn't happen all too often. Once again, Hurts has proven he can do it. And so you might be asking, well, Calvin, there are some good quarterbacks in the NFC. I agree with you, but let's go through the list here. Dak Prescott, we know his history in the playoffs. We know he's not going to show up, and we just saw the year that they just had. So Dak Prescott, not up there. Jared Goff, while he did get the Rams to a Super Bowl, ultimately ended up losing that. I think they only scored 3 points. So ever since that moment, too, just fluctuating success, very high moments and some very low moments for Jared Goff. So not consistent enough. Speaking of inconsistency, that goes to Jordan Love, who is just not quite consistent yet. He's shown flashes of great, oh my goodness, look at this guy, especially last year in the playoffs that you see this year. So he's not consistent enough. Baker Mayfield, now while a underrated quarterback and he does get you some good wins and big wins, he's not going to get you those big wins in the playoffs. He lacks that winning mentality in crucial moments, and those define elite quarterback. Matthew Stafford, probably, that's probably your closest comparison. Achieved the Super Bowl victory recently, strong arm. That's going to make him the biggest contender, I think. But even Stafford, the injuries and inconsistent team performance, that raises some questions too. So I think Jalen Hurts is just that's the perfect selection there as the premier quarterback in the NFC. All right, let's talk about what else we learned through the Super Bowl, and that was that the Eagles' defense was just suffocating, absolutely suffocating. The Chiefs' O line was terrible. Mahomes couldn't get anything going. Just a four-man rush. That's it. And that four-man rush got Mahomes happy feet very early in the contest. I mean, ball was hiked instantly, wanted to start either try to go left or right or move forward. He had moments in the second half where he settled down a little more, but early on, just happy feet from Mahomes, which then leads me to the question of why was the play calling so bad from Matt Nagy? And I believe it was Matt Nagy calling this plays. I don't think Andy Reid would totally abandon the run like they did. You had a 3 to 4 in your first 3 to 4 drives, 12, 12 passes, one run. Now, while Mahomes' first pass was good, why wouldn't you try to establish the run early, create a balanced attack, and let Mahomes settle a little bit? What does he have to prove? We already know he's the one of the greatest. I almost said he was the GOAT, which it would contradict my next topic I'm going to get into here in a second. But he's one of the GOATs. What does he have to prove more? We've seen his success recently in the playoffs. I mean, he was going for a damn three-peat. What does he have to prove? We don't need to see him go out there and throw 12 straight passes. It wasn't 12 straight, but 12 passes in the opening 3 drives. Come on. Establish a balanced attack. The fact that you didn't just allowed, and then you got behind, just allowed the Eagles to play back. Just allowed him to play in a zone, and that's dangerous with that secondary. It also, Mahomes, with the constant pressure, always had his eyes down, so he could never see downfield. It also took away his mobility, which is a very underrated aspect of his game, especially in the playoffs. He always seems to use his legs more when it comes to playoff setting. And so the fact he couldn't even get into that bag, not that it would have mattered in this one, but the fact that he couldn't even get into that bag, I think says a lot. 6 sacks from that Saints front four, 38.1% pressure rate, zero blitzes, zero. Only five other teams, six total teams in NFL Super Bowl history have gone zero blitzes in a game, and they all won. So when you're just getting constant pressure, you're doing the right things. That allowed them to disguise coverages, allowed them to sit back, and then you have elite secondary play. They had a league best negative 0.09 EPA per play this season. Obviously, you have people like Cooper DeJean, Bignon Mitchell. I mean, they're playing beyond their years. So how much is this to blame on Mahomes? After reading on those stats, obviously the line takes the most blame. How are you letting them get to you and your quarterback that much on a four-man rush? And this wasn't a main it was an issue all season, the left side, but it wasn't a main issue really. It didn't really hinder your performances all that much in the playoffs. So why now? Why on the biggest stage? Obviously, Joe Tooney had to move from his initial position to go to the left tackle, but there is a little blame to be put on Mahomes. He did walk into those sacks and he did get the happy feet. So, Chiefs offense, no rhythm. Play calling was terrible for Matt Nagy. Too conservative. Eagles could tell what was coming, it seemed like most plays. Just non-existent running game. So, not a lot that you can do there, which led to Philadelphia having good time management, and that's a game that usually the Chiefs win. So the Eagles playing a little bit of the Chiefs playbook, and it's coming back to bite them. So here was the question to wrap everything up. Now that we talked about what we saw, and it's does Mahomes' Super Bowl losses, or even more specifically this one, put him out of the GOAT conversation for now? And it does. It does. It does for now. Brady's 3 Super Bowl losses were a combined 15 points. Mahomes, if my math's correct, 40. Now he only has two, but still, Brady had three total and 10 Super Bowl appearances, three losses, only by a combined 15. They were always in those games. Mahomes blown out twice. Mahomes in his 5 Super Bowls, 3-2 record, 11 touchdowns, 10 passing, 1 rushing, and 7 interceptions. Now, Brady threw 10 Super Bowls, 7-3 record, 21 touchdowns compared to 11 that Mahomes only has played in half games. And like I said, 7 interceptions for Mahomes, only 6 for Brady, and he's done. And he played in 10 games, so already has less turnovers there. So Brady's had his bad moments, but he always came back. They were always in the moment. When Mahomes has his bad moments, they get blown out. And whether that's because of the Patriots defense that Brady had, or whether it was because Brady willed the way and had great moments to get him back in there mixed with the defense, you can decide that. One of the other criticism is Mahomes' immaturity. Maybe that's the wrong word, but immaturity when it comes to pressure, under pressure, I should say. His inability to rise above the adversity, his inability or his coach's inability to figure out something different, and a lack of composure, even at times, compared to Brady, who made mistakes, as I was just alluding to in the Super Bowl, but always came back, always settled down, always willed his team back in some sort of way. That's not something we've really seen from Mahomes. The closest we got to that was probably the 24-point deficit that they faced against Houston a few years ago, but that wasn't a Super Bowl or anything. So that's probably the closest. Now, a weird thing that I've noticed here is that maybe the Chiefs don't want to face the Bills anymore when it comes to the AFC Championship because the 2 years that they've won, the next game, the Super Bowl, we saw the results there against Tampa Bay and then this time against the Eagles. So maybe that's someone you want to avoid. Does playing the Bills just absolutely take everything out of the Chiefs before a playoff or before a Super Bowl? But Mahomes still at 29, obviously still has a long ways to go. He can easily catch that. I think once he gets to 5 Super Bowls, we can bring back the discussion of if Mahomes is better than Brady. But right now, we're just not quite there. All right, that was episode 25 of For What It's Worth. Just kind of quickly talking about what we saw in the Super Bowl and what we learned about not only Jalen Hurts, but also Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. The Chiefs moving forward, the first position or group that you have to look at in free agency, trade wise, draft wise, whatever. I know you used your draft picks recently but you got to look at the offensive line as a unit in your first moves. I know there's a lot of defensive players that are going to be coming up that can also leave, but your two losses in the Super Bowl were because of the offensive line. So if you want any chance of winning the Super Bowl, obviously your offensive line has to be at least more well constructed than what we saw here. You might want a left tackle. And so that's where they need to start and then move forward from there. Go ahead and follow us on all our socials if you haven't already. We are on X, we are on Instagram, we are on TikTok, we are on Spotify, we are on YouTube. Just type in For What It's Worth podcast or FWIW Sports Pod. Go ahead, subscribe, follow, like, comment, do whatever you guys can. Send the link to friends and family. It really helps us, and of course, we appreciate that. I'm your host, Calvin Silvers, and until next time, have a good one.